Hey, kids, welcome in. It's just after high noon. May I be the first to say a good afternoon to you and yours. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is the Matt Murphy radio portion of the broadcast day. We'll be here till 3 o'clock, handing off to Brian Wilson at that time. It is Monday, November 13, 2023. It is our episode 454 of the proceedings that we hold every afternoon, Monday through Friday from noon until 3 that we call the Matt Murphy Radio Show. You're invited to be a part of those proceedings, either passively listening or actively participating. 615-737-9986. 615-737-WWTN. That is the telephone number. I give it to you often and as quickly as possible just to keep you on your toes. It is also the super text line, which is a much easier and available way for you to communicate to the program as well. And you're invited to communicate either way over the course of the next 180 minutes. You can also find us internet streaming, any platform of your choosing. Take us where you go. You put us on your phone. I don't care how you stream it, but you put us on your phone and you can take us wherever. You can take us into the restaurants. You can take us into the car. You can take us into the bathroom if you want. I'm not judging you. So do that by downloading an internet streaming platform of your choosing and typing in Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Or, of course, Supertalk TV is up and running. Hello. Whether we like it or not, there it is. Flags back in the background as I have returned said flags. More on that in just a moment. Episode 454 on Supertalk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Find us there and chat with us on the F&M Bank chat line. Today's episode, according to Bell K, is entitled
Matt Murphy Show. We solve problems, even if we have to create them first.
That's true. Is that referencing the flags? Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe. So, yeah, I was called by our good friend and colleague Pamela Furr, who held the Bourbon Bash over the weekend at the factory in Franklin. I attended said Bourbon Bash. Fun was had by all. Had a great time. Saw a lot of good friends of Supertalk 99.7 WTN, and every single one of them say hello. I bid on a couple of items at the silent auction. You know, my bourbon bids are epic. Epic.
Did they win?
I won, I love it that, and we were joking about this during the Bourbon Bash. That's the way they get you on the silent auctions. It's not, I paid. I mean, I offered to pay the most money on two separate things, but did you win? That's how they get you on the, it's not like you're winning. You have to get a credit card out. You have to pay the people.
That's true.
I bid and successfully bid on two items, one of which came home with me and will be a gift for my wife's mother. And the other I gave to someone during the event. So.
And did you happen to discover any new bourbon you found particularly enjoyable?
Man, oh man, there was a Kentucky bourbon, and I wish I had the guy's card. He's a longtime listener of the show. He introduced himself to me. He's the proprietor of this distillery just across the border from Tennessee into Kentucky. And if you're listening right now, Paul, his name was Paul. I remember his name was Paul, who is the owner of this establishment. Send me the name, and I'll give you the free plug because it was really, really good. There was another that the wife liked that was called the Toddy. And I don't know what the company was, but it was a cinnamon whiskey along the lines of like a Jack Fire or Fireball. But that was tip-top because it wasn't as sweet as some of those other flavored whiskeys. Other than that, I mean, Uncle Nearest is just kick-butt whiskey. I don't want to leave anybody out. And if I start naming them, I will leave some people out. So it was a lot of fun. The big thing was that we raised a lot of money for the veterans-based charity, Whiskey and Freedom, or Freedom and Whiskey. I might have been transposing those. And it was just a great event. Thank you for all that came. Thank you for all that said hello to me. And Pamela Furr does a great job at organizing these events, and she should be applauded. It was new to Franklin. I owe Pamela a telephone call because she asked me what I thought about the difference between holding it at Leaper's Fork versus holding it in Franklin at the factory. It was the first at the factory, a great facility out there at the factory in Franklin, Liberty Hall. And if you were out there, you know, and if you weren't, you missed out, and you can always come next year. So great event to benefit veterans, and great to see so many veterans in the room. and shake their hands on Veterans Day, which was the most important thing. Either way, so Pamela realized her flag person got sick. And she called me on Saturday and said, hey, Murph, can you help me out? And can you help me out and swing by the radio station and grab the flags? Now, Pamela and I kind of coordinated these flags here in the studio. She asked Jack Johnson, Senate Majority Leader, if it was possible if we could work on getting some flags from the Capitol over to the radio station, considering the amount of back and forth. And anyway, Jack was very courteous and donated the flags to us, donated the American flag and the flag of the state of Tennessee that you see right behind me over my right shoulder. Because I inquired about flag stands, and so I bought these flag stands. And they were, it was Amazon flag stands. It's not like they're fancy flag stands. So I bought these flag stands, and we got these flags up. So we felt comfortable in being able to score the flags for the weekend. So I got them on Saturday, and I understand that Dan Manis was very concerned that we had a flag stealer in our midst. Thankfully, not the case, Dan, as it was Pamela and myself that had taken the flags, and they're now back in location right behind me. Good time was had by all over the weekend, and I hope that you had an opportunity to spend some time with a veteran. Hope you had the opportunity to thank a veteran. Obviously, every freedom that we enjoy in the United States of America has sacrifice attached to it, and we are wise to remind ourselves of that sacrifice on a regular basis, if not a daily basis. Tim Scott is out as a presidential candidate. Seems like a nice guy. It was not his time. He was getting no traction. We'll talk about that on the show today. We will talk about Biden family and the Biden family crime syndicate and the Biden family grift. And I'm going to walk through with you because I've not addressed this in depth in the last month or so.
Give me a break.
Mr. President, I got to do it. I'm going to walk through the Biden family grift in a timeline fashion, what we know and why James Comer is demanding that we need to talk to Jim Biden, we need to talk to Hunter Biden. It'd be nice to talk to Joe, but he's president of the United States and enjoys some natural immunity as a result. I will tell you the story later on today about an individual by the name of Jonathan Lewis. We have lost Jonathan Lewis at the age of 17. The world ought to know this kid's name. And if circumstances were slightly different, the world would know his name. I'm going to say something to you that is provocative, but it is designed to be so, and it is absolutely 100% true. It is a damn shame that we live in a country where we're never going to know who Jonathan Lewis was, and we know who George Floyd is. Now, George Floyd's presence to us, but we became aware of that because of malfeasance engaged upon him, regardless of the circumstances by which he was being apprehended, by Derek Chauvin. But it is a shame that we will not learn the story of Jonathan Lewis and do something about it as a nation. He ought to be alive today. And as he is not, he certainly should be celebrated today. And we should remind ourselves of what we did, how we are complicit in his death in a certain way, because we allow certain things to go on in our midst without clapping back on it. I'll tell you all about that. Has anyone else gotten IRS letters? Okay. My wife and I have it. I'm not going to hold it up because I don't want my personal information. I mean, I have it. I did hold it up, but I held up the blank side. I received correspondence from the Department of the Treasury, the Internal Revenue Service, about a bill they claimed that I owe from 2020. And I have paid all my taxes in 2020.
Sir, we know how much you make, and you do not pay your fair share.
Well, obviously, no. So we pushed our taxes from April to October this year, and we've now
and
paid
your
them.
wife knows how to do that properly because...
I mean, she worked for an accountant, a CPA for years. And so, well, I mean, we still, our taxes are done by a CPA firm in Alabama. And so in coordinating that, we got an extension in April, and then we've now paid our taxes. We always owe something to the federal government. I always owe something to the federal government because I don't want the federal government holding on to my money. I don't want to prepay any amount additional to what I owe. Now, I try to balance it out so I don't owe that much to the federal government. I mean, this year it was a little more than normal, but invariably, once we do our taxes, there's a tax bill. I try to get it about even, but I typically have to cut a check for a couple of grand, right? Which is not easy, but it is what it is. It's
You
better.
don't want to give the federal government a interest-free loan?
That's exactly right. I'm not going to do it. I'd rather cut the check, man. I try to get it to zero, but I'm going to err on the side of owing you money. I'm not going to err on the side of getting money back because that means that you held on to my money interest-free, and I don't think the government needs to do that. But what interested me is we accidentally overpaid this year by an amount of $2.11 after our payment. And so we received a letter in the mail from the IRS. We applied your 2022 overpayment to an unpaid balance. This is an unpaid balance that they claim comes from 2020, which was unknown to us. We've never received any correspondence about an unpaid balance. The unpaid balance was in the amount of $42.47 that the IRS now claims that we owed from 2020. We applied $2.11 from your 2022 form overpayment to an amount owed for 2020. As a result, the amount you owe for December 31st, 2020 is $40.36. If you already have an installment or payment agreement in place for this tax year, then continue with that agreement. We don't owe any money from 2020. We've paid all of our money from 2020. We paid our money in 2020 from 2020. You get it? The reason that I bring this up, anybody else getting one of these? Mama Maury says she got an IRS letter that they... What? All right, Mama Maury, is that right? Is that figure right? $217,000? Man.
Well, yeah, the federal government is a little shy.
Yeah, they take a bite, don't they? So the reason I bring this up, obviously, as Bell mentioned, my wife worked for a CPA firm in Alabama, the people that still do our taxes. So we called David, our accountant, and she asked him what the deal was, and he said, yeah, I'm quoting him now. He said, yeah, I got one of those too. And she said, this has to be an error. He said, yeah, you should probably just pay it. And I think I'm going to dig my heels in on this on principle because I don't think I owe it. And I think if I did owe it, the IRS would have told me about it before now. And I want to know if this is something that's happening to a bunch of people. That now that the IRS has gotten themselves out of COVID and yada, 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 they're coming after us for who knows what.
Well, you have to remember we have almost $34 trillion in debt, so you owe a lot more than you think you do.
Well, maybe so. You think they are? I think they're trying to take some nips, and they realize that most people aren't going to sit for 2 hours and wait for an IRS agent to get on the phone. Most people don't have backdoor ways to communicate to the IRS to figure out what the hell's going on, and most people will not consider that hassle to be worth the $40.36 that the IRS currently says that I owe from 2020, which isn't true, unless it was an error on the part of the IRS, in which case they need to, well, eat it. Eat it. Look at this. I am getting, man, oh, man. See, I want to know, and Mama Maury, okay, is that figure right, Mama Maury? I got a letter. They want an additional $217,000. Look, the IRS is a government agency, and it's one of the most dangerous government agencies out there because they don't play around. And they can come and get you and get your stuff. But they're also completely ineffective, as every other government agency is. They don't know their butts from a hole in the ground. We paid our IRS bill right after we finished our taxes and filed it before the October 15th deadline because we'd gotten ourselves a 6-month extension. In doing so, we got a letter after we paid the bill saying, hey, you owe us money. And we had to call them and say, no, we don't. We've already paid it. Oh, yeah, you did already pay it. And then we get this bill saying that we owe $40.36 from 2020. I believe the IRS feels like most Americans will cut a check, pay this just to make it go away.
Do they send you any corroborating paperwork?
No, of course they don't. You owe us $40.30. Now, I promise you this. If we didn't pay them the entire amount owed from 2020 before December 31st, 2020, or whenever that was due, we would have heard about it then. Not now.
Does that say anything about interest or penalties?
That's what we're trying to figure out is exactly what this payment is for. It does not. It says overpayment for 2022, $2.11. Amount applied to tax owed for 2020, $2.11. Remaining balance for 2020, $40.36.
And your accountant said just to pay it?
Yep. I understand what David means. If you do not pay $40.36, interest will increase and additional penalties may apply. What David is saying is, what is $40 worth to you? Is it worth the amount of money that you'll have to pay me to track it down? Or is it worth your time and energy to spend on the phone to track this down yourself? And I almost feel like it is worth the second phase of that out of principle alone. And I am receiving
$40 and change. I mean, that would buy a tenth of a bomb.
Like a bomb that we can send over to Ukraine?
Yeah.
That kind of bomb?
That's a tenth of a bomb.
He's not talking about like a domestic terrorist type bomb.
No, not at all.
He's talking about like a military.
Yeah, we got aid we got to send to Ukraine and Israel. We got some bombs we got to buy. Pay your bill, man.
Look, I'm not saying my agent, my accountant, David, because people are clapping back. Why is he telling you that? I understand why he's telling me that. Don't get me wrong. He's telling us that because that is the easiest way just to get this off the table and make it go away, is to give the people a couple of 20s and be done with it. But I think I might try to stand on principle on this one, especially considering that so many of you are responding that you're getting similar letters in the mail. I'll reflect on some of those coming up in just a moment. 0093 says what I feel, and that is I'd rather pay $1,000 to a CPA than $40 to the IRS. You got that right.
Yeah,
there.
That's about truth.
I mean, that's just about right. Coming up a little later on in the show, we've got Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs. He's going to be in town for a Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition event tomorrow night. He'll be on the phone with us a little later on to tell us about the state of affairs in Knox County, etc. I'm going to be over in his neck of the woods this Saturday. I might get some tips on where to park.
Going to a game?
Going to the game. It's hate week, baby. At some point this week, we need to set aside some time so the volunteer fans can call in with their bulldog jokes. You know what I mean? That's just fun. Friday adventure. That feels like a Friday adventure. We'll get into, I'm attempting to start a new segment on the show called Best of Worst of the Weekend. I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but I want to do kind of best of worst of for all of us over the course of the weekend, whether it's political or local or something that happened with you and your family, maybe your sports team won, whatever it might be.
I can taste it.
Yeah, I'm working it out in my head how to do this segment, but I think it should be a Monday segment called Best of Worst of the Weekend. 12:23, right now, your call's coming up. If you've got any stories to tell about the IRS, now's the time to do it, 615-737-9986. Michael Patrick Leahy will be here in the 1 o'clock hour. And just a programming note, Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson tomorrow on the show at 2. And I believe Cameron Sexton will be on Wednesday at some point because they've asked for some rebuttal time considering what Jack might be on about. So I'll tell you all about that. If you missed the interview on Friday, you missed a lot. We've got a lot to get into on the Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, folks, it's Matt Murphy. Defense Systems is a life safety and security consultation firm based right here in Middle Tennessee. You've heard Brink Fiddler on the show plenty. You've heard Gloria Tracy, a couple of his team members with Defense Systems on the show as well. I believe in the way that they do their business. I believe in what they do. They just had a teacher seminar this past Friday. I do not know how it went, but I'm certain that it went spectacularly, considering I've been through the program myself, and I know how good they are at helping you understand exactly what to do should you find yourself in a violent situation, how to prevent workplace violence, how to respond to an active shooter situation, God forbid if one comes your way, security consultation and improvement on site for your particular site, whether it's a place of business, a school, a church. If you are a decision maker anywhere people gather, you need to call Brink Fiddler and his team and get them to your facility. DefenseSystems.com, that's DefenseSystems.com. They customize rapid response, medical training, and violence prevention and threat assessment to your facility. Call today at 236-6484. That's 615-236-6484 or DefenseSystems.com. Friends, hope is not a plan. It is time to get trained with Defense Systems. It is 1229 Super Talk 99.7 WTN Libertarian Lunch in Progress. Hope you're doing well. My name is Matt Murphy. Thank you for being with us. Whatever time you're able to give us, I'm very appreciative of your time. You don't have to be here. I do. You don't have to be here, and I appreciate you because your presence is why I continue to come in on a day-to-day basis. They allow me to do that because you're here. Secondarily, join us in conversation, 615-737-9986 if you so desire. Always good to turn a monologue into a dialogue. That's what we like to do on a day-to-day basis. On episode 454, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm as thankful as can be. It is, it is the season of Thanksgiving after all. Although some people want to cover that up with Christmas, which if you follow me on social media, if you don't, you're doing it wrong, by the way. On social media, you can find me on a variety of platforms. I'm mostly on Twitter. I find Twitter to be a cesspool. It's a garbage place full of garbage people and garbage takes, and I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a hot mess. It's a hot dumpster fire. With that in mind, I'm there quite frequently. You can find me at Matt Murphy Show. That's at Matt Murphy Show on Twitter. I'm also on I'm available on Truth Social, but frankly, I'm not on there very much. I'm also available on Facebook, although the response is a little more spotty on Facebook or Facebook Messenger, but you can find me there. I'll respond to you. It just takes a little while longer. You can either find Matt Murphy or Matt Murphy Show. If there's any availability on my personal side, I'll accept you. Otherwise, go to the show page and follow us there. We pretty much, anything that happens on one happens on the other on the Facebook side. So you're not missing out if you're not on the personal page. Typically, I try to do more on the show page just so those who can't get to the personal page don't miss out. Anyway. But Twitter's where it's at. X is where it's at Matt Murphy Show. I posted a joke, what was clearly a joke, on social media in response to Dan Mandis. Did you see what Dan did over the weekend?
Did it involve not leaving his house?
It involved decorating his house.
So I was right.
I'm not knocking anybody. Y'all do you. If you want to leave Christmas up the whole year, that is up to you. I just think it takes a little something away from the nature of the holiday when we have our decorations up for 2 full months.
Well,
Am I wrong?
I have my Christmas decorations up, but they're the decorations for 2025.
Well, now there was a time in my life where I decorated a Christmas tree with nice lights. These were colored lights. Because I like it was the way my grandma used to do it. And then after the Christmas season was over, I just took all all the little daubers and balls and ornaments off and left the lights up. And then it was just a lighted tree for the rest of the year. It was festive. But anyway, inspired by Mandis, I posted I said, look, you can decorate anytime you want, but know this. If you decorate for Christmas in November, Santa has to kill an elf. And people went crazy. Did you see people responding that I'm promoting gun violence?
They care more about the elves than they do the puppies.
What
happens when I say this?
It's Friday Eve all day long on the Matt Murphy Show.
Yes, elves aren't real people. Puppies are.
It's an established fact that every time you say Friday Eve, a puppy dies. Every time. And I just killed one right then, just to illustrate the point. Anyway, in response to that, I'm in a spot of bother because people are saying I'm promoting violence. Okay, sure. Just learn to take a joke. Lighten up, Francis. It's 12:33, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. When we return, Mayor Glenn Jacobs joins us on the Murphy Hotline next. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you during the Libertarian Lunch. It's 12:38. Glad to have you along for the ride. We'll get more of your telephone calls in here in just a moment at 615-737-9986. We'll go over where we are with the House Oversight Committee in their investigation into the Biden crime syndicate family. That's coming up a little later on. Tell you the story of Jonathan Lewis. Sadly, Jonathan Lewis lost his life in Las Vegas. I'll tell you why that happened later on in the show. Michael Patrick Leahy at 1:35 to follow up on our interview with Cameron Sexton from last Friday. It is a busy, busy Monday. It's a busy week. You know who we have coming on the show? So tomorrow, Jack Johnson, Senate Majority Leader, will be here. I think Cameron will be back with us on Wednesday. We also have Wednesday at noon. Mark your calendar. I don't get excited over interviews very often anymore. I mean, I'm excited about the guy we have on the line right now, obviously. But Pat Boone will be in studio with us. Pat Boone. Yes, that Pat Boone will be in studio. He's in town. He's promoting a new album, believe it or not. And how old is Pat? 95? Man, oh man, that's exciting. We'll tell you more about that as the week progresses. But 12 noon, high noon, Pat Boone, high noon, Matt Murphy show.
89.
89. I had him a little older than I should have.
I guess retirement's not in the cards for old Pat.
No, it's all good. All right, Mayor Glenn Jacobs joins us. He is mayor of Knox County to talk about coming into town tomorrow for an event with the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. We're happy to have him on anytime he's willing. Hello, Mayor. How are you, sir?
Hey, doing great. How are y'all this afternoon?
Man, fabulous. How's it going in Knox County?
It's a beautiful day for mid-November. It's awesome. Everything's going really well.
You just got to keep the liberals at bay there, Glenn. That's the big thing. And I know you're working on that on a regular basis. Hey, some people clapped back on what I thought to be a very fair and apt analogy that you made between health insurance and auto insurance recently. And I just want to circle back to this because a lot of liberals are freaking out that you properly described what the government, the government ruins things when it tries to infuse itself into the health insurance industry. Just walk me through that analogy that you made recently.
Yeah, so for years in our country, really up until World War II, health insurance was completely different than we think of it as now. It was a lot like car insurance in that it was for catastrophic problems, but your day-to-day stuff was something you paid for out of pocket. Again, much like your car, maintenance, you take care of that. But collisions and those sort of things, that's what your insurance is for. Then what happened during World War II is the FDR, along with Congress, obviously, implemented wage controls. And one of the ways that businesses tried to get around that was they started to offer a lot of fringe benefits, one of those being third-party health insurance. And from there, things just went off the rails. Congress actually, when we think about managed health, Congress actually created HMOs. Then that didn't work. So then they did some other stuff, eventually bringing in Obamacare. But all of these things have had a detrimental impact on our healthcare system. And one of the biggest issues is the fact that people are no longer responsible really for kind of taking care of themselves, or at least looking at their healthcare issues, and trying to figure out, trying to make the expenses manageable because they're not paying for the insurance anymore. They're not paying for the care anymore themselves. It's offloaded on a third party, not only private insurance companies, but the government through programs like Medicare and Medicaid. And that's where we see a lot of these price escalations. And then, of course, the entire problem with the healthcare system, at least from an economic perspective, is there's no price mechanism. No one knows how much stuff costs. I mean, literally hospitals just kind of make up a number. Then the insurance companies get discounts and all these things, and if you're to go and, again, go back to the car analogy, if you had an issue with your car, you take it to the shop, and they say, this is how much it's going to cost to repair your car.
No, I talked to a
give you a price beforehand.
I talked to a good friend of mine years ago, and he was getting some back work done, and one of the smartest guys I know, one of my best friends. And he said, Matt, literally the only thing that I do in my life that I have no idea what it cost me is involved in healthcare. Because,
Yes.
If I go to the shop to get my transmission replaced, I know exactly what it's going to cost me versus you go into a doctor's, you know what your copay is, but outside of that, you got no clue. I think we need to remove uninterested or parties that ought not to be involved in the process as many as possible. There's way too many involved in the process. There's your employer, the insurance company, the pharmaceutical industry, the doctors, and, literally the patient is the last consideration along the food chain.
And for your quality of care, in many cases, it's no longer doctors that are really making the decisions. It's the insurance companies that are saying that this is the protocol for whatever. And that makes me incredibly uncomfortable because the doctors are the people that are actually seeing the patients and should be making, advising patients on the best decisions. It shouldn't be some bureaucrat with some insurance agency or the government making those decisions for people.
Mayor Glenn Jacobs is with us. He is Knox County Mayor. He will be in town tomorrow from 5:30 to 7:30 with the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition at the Corner Pub in Cool Springs for one of their monthly events. It's a great program. You need to go out and see it. I've had the honor of being there. I was kind of the warm-up act for Mayor Jacobs, who will no doubt fill the room tomorrow night, so get there early. I did not know something about you, Mayor, and I learned it in anticipation of our interview today. And considering that yesterday was Veterans Day, I did not know that you came from a military family. And I'm curious how that informed your adult life, how that helped formulate where you are from your position as Knox County Mayor versus your views on the United States military and beyond.
Yeah, my dad was in the military when I was born. I was actually born at Torrejon Air Base in Madrid, Spain. So I was kind of born into the Air Force, if you will. But he spent 21 years in the military. He was 10 years in the Navy. He was in the Korean War on the USS Antietam aircraft carrier, then switched services to the Air Force. He was in Vietnam. Now, he did retire when I was 4 years old. So I didn't travel around like my siblings did. I think they went to like 6 different elementary schools or something like that. But the most incredible thing about my father is he just really doesn't talk about any of his service, a little bit. But when I was a little kid, I'll never forget going through my parents' nightstand, which I wasn't supposed to be doing, obviously. But there's a box full of medals, and now I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, that my dad, I think his philosophy was he was just doing a job, and that was it. And so many of our service members, that's what they're doing, and we make a point of saying thank you for your service and recognizing them, especially on days like Veterans Day. But to them, what they're doing is an extraordinary job, but it's still just their job. And, again, that's very humbling to think that people would put their lives on the line for our liberties and our freedom, and literally think it's no big deal. That's just something that they do. And I think that's something even me, but most people can't relate to that attitude.
Well, I mean, it's well spoken. I mean, and we did a bunch of this Friday, and I just want to remind people how much we think of, obviously, the military folks that give us the freedom and liberty to be able to have discussions like this one, Glenn. I mean, obviously, everything that we enjoy from a liberty and freedom standpoint in the United States of America has sacrifice attached to it through our United States military. Are you concerned with the current commander? I imagine I know the answer to this question, but so I laugh as I ask it. But, I mean, right now, I don't think our military really knows what we're doing. What are we doing with regard to the Ukraine conflict? What are we doing regarding our support of the nation of Israel, if anything? What should we be doing? There's a lot of mixed messages coming out of the White House from the commander-in-chief. Would you not agree?
Yeah, well, there's always mixed messages most of the time because he's mumbling and we can't understand him. But this is a very scary time. When you think about Donald Trump being in office, the world is at peace, at least as peaceful as the world ever is. And he achieved that literally through mean tweets, diplomacy, negotiation, controlled unpredictability, calculated unpredictability, And what I mean by that was I heard him say one day that, Ukraine would have never happened if he'd been president, because he told Putin, he's like, if you invade Ukraine, I'm going to bomb Moscow. Now, he's like, would I have done that? I don't know, but neither did Putin. Just stuff like that, projecting strength, instead of what we have now is just frailty and weakness. You look at what's happened in the Middle East, no one's afraid of us. And economically, why should they be? I mean, you think about China, you think about Russia. Our economy is so weak. We're in so much debt, just all the problems that we have domestically. What are we going to do around the world? We have enough trouble here at home. And you think about it, and, when Trump was running for president, oh my gosh, he's going to lead us into World War III. He's the first president forever that didn't start a new war.
Yep.
He literally kept the world at peace. The Abraham Accords, Donald Trump, now the Middle East is on fire. And so much of it is because of the posture that you take. And when you project weakness, bad actors around the world are going to take advantage of that. When you project strength, that buttresses everybody around the world. And literally, we're seeing a case study of it right now unfold before our very eyes.
Mayor Glenn Jacobs is with us for a few more moments. He is in town tomorrow, the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition holding their monthly chapter meeting at Corner Pub, Cool Springs, starting at 5:30. I would encourage you to get there early because anytime Glenn Jacobs speaks, a lot of folks gather. They love hearing Mayor Jacobs, his perspective on a variety of issues. And I want to ask you specifically because obviously the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition, they have made it a laser-focused mission of theirs to do everything we can to stop the scourge of human and child trafficking, not just in the state of Tennessee, but beyond. That effort more difficult than ever considering what's going on the southern border. I imagine that this will be a portion of your talk. What are you seeing across the state of Tennessee? Is this a real problem in the state, in your estimation, based on your experience?
Oh, yeah, it's a real problem, and it's everywhere. You think of it being just in big cities. We have an exceptional situation here in Knox County because we're at the intersection of I-75 and I-40, and just like commerce travels through that corridor, well, so does contraband, including human trafficking. Probably similar in Nashville with the intersections of all the freeways over there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just the big cities. It's the small towns. It's everywhere. It really is a growing problem. We look at the history of the United States and, we got rid of slavery right after the Civil War, right? But unfortunately, around the world, there are more people enslaved now than ever, and a lot of it is human trafficking, sexual enslavement, and those sort of things. So, yeah, it is a real problem, and my hat's off to the Faith and Freedom Coalition, as well as the Mission America Foundation for the work that they're doing in addressing this scourge.
Well, we look forward to the conversation tomorrow night, 5:30, Cool Springs Pub. Can't wait to have you in town. As always, Mayor Jacobs. And every time I have you on the show, the same question gets asked to me over and over again. So I have to ask. Do you have any thoughts about your future, or are you focused solely on Knox County? Because, look, I could spend the next 5 minutes reading off all of the messages on my super text line. Glenn Jacobs for governor, Kane for governor, Kane for governor, Kane for 8 years. I'm seeing them. Any response to this type of reaction that you get when you get out and about?
Yeah, right now I'm focused on being the best mayor that I can be. I am term limited, so in 3 years I'll be out of office and looking for what I'm going to do next. But I've never been one of those people that looked at this position as a stepping stone. I might do something in the future. I might not. It just kind of depends. I think that all levels of government are important, from local, state, and federal. In fact, I think that state and local are actually, at this point, I think you can affect change much more meaningfully than you can at the federal level. But it's still a little early for me to make any decisions. But I am very flattered that people would throw my name out in that conversation.
Well, we look forward to many conversations along these lines over the next 3 years or so as you determine what your next level of public service would be. You're doing a great job in Knox County. Hey, I'm coming to I'll be in Knoxville this weekend. I'm a Georgia boy. Glenn.
Oh, no.
So,
Dude, I liked you so much before you said that.
well, we'll have a good time. I might hit you up on where's the best place to park when I'm in town, right? I'm sure there'll be no one else there this weekend.
Yeah, no one. No, dude, the 100,000 people that normally come won't be here. It should be a great time, and I seriously hope you enjoy the game. It'll be it's going to be a rough game for the Vols. Look what happened last year against Alabama. So never
Vols
say
are
never.
tough. I don't care what happens on the road.
Yep.
Vols are tough at home, man. Tough at
They
home.
sure
I'm
are.
worried about them at home.
One of the toughest places to play in the country. That's right.
Glenn, thank you so much, and we'll see you tomorrow night, okay?
Thanks.
All right, there's
Take
Mayor
care,
Glenn
guys.
Jacobs joining us in town tomorrow night from 5:30 to 8:30, really in Franklin at the oh gosh, I just had it up, and a Corner Pub in Cool Springs. Corner Pub in Cool Springs. It's Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. It's 54 after on Super Talk. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy for Tennessee Men's Clinic. Gentlemen, let's talk. Do you feel sluggish, run down, low energy? Did you know that most men wait way too long to do anything about it when they feel this way, especially when it comes to bedroom health? That's the way that I'll refer to it. Bedroom health, right? Because men don't want to talk about it because they feel like there's some sort of shame in that game. There is not. Did you know that half of the men in America will go through some form of this at some point in their lives? Let's figure out if it's an easy fix for you at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. And regardless of where your energy level or lack thereof is manifesting itself, the Tennessee Men's Clinic can help identify the problems, identify where it's coming from, and put a solution together that works for you and for your family. So if you're feeling lethargic, tired, grumpy, run down, let's get to it. Let's go to the Tennessee Men's Clinic and fix that thing. It is 208, the number that is, 208-9090, 615-208-9090, or two locations to serve you. You can also find out more at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com.
From ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. The Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza today says hundreds of premature babies remain trapped inside. Doctors forced to remove them from incubators as power fails. Surrounded by Israeli forces continuing their assault. ABC's Patrick Reevell is in Tel Aviv.
We know that Israel has been saying it wants to provide fuel and has been offering to evacuate the babies, but so far the fighting is so intense around there that the doctors say that's simply not possible. And basically both sides are sort of blaming each other for the impossibility of evacuating these babies. And the fighting there is just raging around the hospital, and as you can imagine, the situation there is just getting worse and worse.
Tonight on Capitol Hill, the House to vote on whether to block or advance a Republican effort to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Also on the Hill this week, House Speaker Mike Johnson expected to pitch his plan to keep the government's doors open past a Friday deadline. But it's Republicans who are pushing back. ABC's Jay O'Brien has more.
The first Republican who came out against it, Chip Roy. He says because the CR doesn't have other provisions in it and it just extends government funding, that's what clean is. That's why he's against it. And then since then, at least 6 Republicans have come out against it, including Scott Perry. Perry is the chair of the House Freedom Caucus. He says, quote, I will not support a status quo that fails to acknowledge fiscal irresponsibilities.
In testimony today in the Trump Organization fraud trial, Donald Trump Jr. heaping praise on his father and disputing claims that the company overvalued its real estate holdings. Fire under a freeway bringing a commuter nightmare in Los Angeles. The I-10 closed indefinitely. Mayor Karen Bass warning Angelenos that this is not an easy fix.
Losing this stretch of the 10 freeway will take time and money from people's lives and businesses. It's disrupting in every way. Whether you are talking about traveling to and from work or your child care plans and the flow of goods and commerce.
Airlines bracing for record numbers of Americans taking to the skies over the long Thanksgiving weekend. You're listening to ABC News.
Hey, friends, Matt Murphy here. November is Lung Cancer Awareness Month. Let me give you a couple of factoids that you may not know. Did you know that lung cancer remains the number one cause of cancer death in the United States of America, causing more deaths than breast, prostate, and colon cancers combined, even though smoking is going down by percentage over the last several years and decades. But the American College of Surgeons recognizes the need for you, especially if you have smoked or been exposed to secondhand smoke or have a history of lung cancer in the family, to get caught up with where you are regarding your health with a CT scan. They recommend it, and we recommend it, and we've been doing so with Kraft Body Scan. For the month of November, Kraft Body Scan is offering a couple's heart and lung scan. For you and a spouse or a loved one, you come in, you get scanned for just $149 for the entire scan. It is an introductory price to introduce you to full CT scans, to help you understand how they are effective in diagnosing issues, identifying issues long before you have symptoms on those issues. This is a $1,300 value that they're offering for just $149. The scan is fully clothed. It's about a 5-minute process after you sit down and talk with a healthcare consultant, and it's read by a board-certified radiologist. Get peace of mind today. Don't delay. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Kraft Body Scan. KraftBodyScan.com. Spell Kraft with a C. BodyScan.com or 615-436-1000. 436-1000. Man, oh man, the libertarian lunch just flew by. And now we're on to hour number 2 of the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WT. And hope you're doing well. Hope you're well fed. Hope you're ready for education, information, and all the things that we try to provide you on a day-to-day basis on Super Talk 99.7 WT. And Bel K's behind the glass.
I went onto the Knox County, Tennessee website because I'm going to pull a picture for the podcast of the mayor. And it actually says, we are unable to accommodate requests for autographs or memorabilia through the Knox County Mayor's office. These requests should be directed to WWE, and any items received through this office will be discarded or donated to charity.
And you know what? I intentionally tried to avoid referring to him as Kane in any way, but his Wikipedia page, it's Kane. It says Kane and then a.k.a. Glenn Jacobs.
I think he has to have a real thick skin about that because he's got such a huge fan base from that part of his life that he's not going to just pretend it didn't happen.
Well, no. I mean, obviously, it's it's what brought him to here. I mean, it's what gave him the ability to serve as he's serving as Knox County mayor now. So, I mean, kudos for him. And frankly,
I just thought it was kind of odd that it's so predominant.
You get so many requests that you have to do that. By the way, a lot of you are informing me because my reputation precedes me. I mentioned that I will be in Knox County this weekend. We'll be at the Tennessee-Georgia game. I've never... To Georgia, we beat the crap out of Ole Miss. 52-17. It was over in the first half. Anyway, I can do that all day. But Tennessee's a different team. I mean, Tennessee lost a frustrating game over the weekend, and I know it's been a frustrating season for Volunteer fans. I don't count Heupel out, though, and I think at home it's a tough contest. I will be later on this week asking for recommendations from you because I trust all of you so much. And I know that you wouldn't steer me wrong, even though I'm a Bulldog fan. So we'll be asking you about lunch recommendations or breakfast recommendations, parking recommendations, all that sort of things. We're just going over for the day. We're not spending the night because of the dogs. We've got somebody that's taking care of the dogs Saturday, like for a couple of hours. So we'll leave early in the morning and get over there probably around 11:30. Knoxville is Eastern time, right? Okay, so we'll leave an hour earlier. Anyway, a lot of you are informing me that Dolly Parton has announced that she will be at the game. Should I reveal that we're going together? Is that, no? Wait on that? Okay. I do not. 7662 wants to know if I have an extra ticket. I do not. I would love to have an extra ticket to help you out. And he said, I'm a veteran and I'm a dog fan. Thank you for your veteran service and go dogs. And if I get a line on one, I'll let you know. All right, 110, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let's update. In a moment, Michael Patrick Leahy will be along, and he's going to give us an update from the Tennessee Star's perspective. They did a great piece on our interview with Cameron Sexton from last Friday. I think because it was a Friday, maybe this got lost in the shuffle a little bit, but not lost on the Tennessee Star. Some of the things that our Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton, had to say about the death of Jillian Ludwig. We did a deep dive with Cameron Sexton Friday. And the Tennessee Star has now done a similar deep dive and fact-checked Speaker Sexton's claim in our interview that Shaquille Taylor, the alleged killer of 18-year-old Belmont University student Jillian Ludwig, who was shot in the head Tuesday, died Thursday, would have been in custody if the Tennessee State Senate had done their job, Cameron's words, not mine, and passed legislation in the August special session that the House had passed. The Tennessee Star has determined that Sexton's claims are false. Jack Johnson will offer a response. He would have come today, but he was unable to due to business obligations. But he has agreed to come on with us tomorrow to respond to this. This is an increasingly testy relationship between, I wouldn't say the House and the Senate, but I would say Cameron Sexton and certain members of the Tennessee State Senate. And it's pretty obvious to me. I don't want to put words in the speaker's mouth. You can listen to his podcast. It's available on 99.7's our website, 997wtn.com. If you go there, click on podcast, click on Matt Murphy, and you'll see it. It's one of the top ones on the page. Cameron clearly does not appreciate the way the Senate handled the special session. And while he was attempting to navigate some pretty choppy waters in the House of Representatives, the Senate made the determination that they were going to take up the bills the governor asked them to take up, pass what they could, and move on. And they did. At this point, Cameron Sexton, the Speaker of the House, says that had they been a little more serious and deliberative, had they considered some of the bills taken up by the House, that perhaps the outcomes would have been different. I'll let Michael Patrick Leahy speak on this in a moment, as he is ready to set the record straight on what was passed, what was not passed, and what Cameron meant when he said that certainly had the Senate passed some of the legislation taken up by the House, that the possibility existed that Shaquille Taylor would have been incarcerated as opposed to on the streets. Last week, I made it a cause of this radio show, and by extension this radio station, to get answers for the family of Jillian Ludwig. Sadly, her situation does not fit the narrative by which it would gain steam in the mainstream media. But her life is precious, and she deserves answers. Her family deserves answers. Why was Shaquille Taylor out? Who is to blame? Is it D.A. Glenn Funk, as many of us suggested last week? Cameron Sexton said no. That Funk was working with his office on a fix to what they consider to be a loophole. Hearing Michael Patrick Leahy this morning on Nashville's Morning News and anticipating a conversation with him this afternoon on the Matt Murphy Show, I would expect that he would say, no, there is no loophole, that there were measures that could have been taken by the judge in this case or Glenn Funk in this case to keep Shaquille Taylor behind bars. We'll hear from him coming up in a few moments, and I will share with you the specifics of the bill referenced by Sexton that would have amended Tennessee code relative to mental health services in the state of Tennessee that he says would have potentially kept Taylor behind bars. So we're going to do all that in a moment. In the meantime, did you see what happened in Mount Juliet over the weekend? I want to do this as something of a public service. It does not matter the neighborhood that we're talking about, but I saw this as it was going down, did not realize what I was seeing. So, longtime listeners of the show, if you're a newbie to the show, we live out in Mount Juliet. Lovely community. Not really yes, in the ghetto of Mount Juliet. You're right. We do live on the southern side. That's kind of the ghetto side, isn't it? So I'm pulling off the interstate, and, we're relatively close to Providence Mall, and I'm pulling off the interstate Friday afternoon. It's, 5 o'clock or so, maybe a little later than that. And I start seeing, I guess it was later than that, because I took Bell to Mr. Transmission and left him there, and then took off home. I didn't really leave him there. How's the car, by the way?
Did not leave me there.
How's the car, by the way? Driving good?
Yeah. It's nice to actually be able to get in my car and go somewhere now.
Yeah, you just choose to not think about that price tag, huh? Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. What?
I'm pretty impressed that they were able to get it done this quickly. I mean, obviously they got like transmissions galore over there, Mr. Transmission. Oh, well, I shouldn't say the name of the company. At whatever transmission joint that you chose to go to,
Mrs. Tranny.
Anyway, I'm just surprised that they got it fixed as timely a fashion.
Did you see the text I sent you with the pictures on it? Where I tried to tweet something and it was limited.
What?
I tweeted out, I blew a tranny in my car and it cost me $7,000 to fix it, with a little gif of a transmission shifter.
Uh-huh.
And Twitter limited it for hate speech. And so I sent in an appeal.
Because you used the term tranny?
Right, obviously in reference to, the slang for transmission.
Right, sure.
So I sent in a rather colorful appeal using language we can't use on the radio.
Oh, was that the nature of your appeal? I'm looking at I didn't see this when you sent it to me. I'm sorry I didn't.
So I made an appeal using colorful language and references to their mother, and it was unlimited about 30 minutes later.
So yell at Twitter enough, and Elon Musk's Twitter will unlimit you?
Yes, one of my mutuals actually said, so that's what it takes is bullying?
Hell yeah.
No, it's bullying and mother references.
I mean, I guess so. No, this is a callback to our Friday show where we were talking about you blew up your transmission, or more commonly known in the industry as a tranny.
Right.
You blew up your tranny. Well, I'm glad everything is going better now. Anyway, the Mount Juliet Police Department is searching for 3 suspects involved in a shooting at a shopping center Friday. Here was the story that I happened to catch the latter part of. I pulled up to the red light, and I see all of these cars in the parking lot of Providence Mall. And the lights are, cop cars and lights are on, and there's a lot of them. So many of them that I feel like, well, something went down that was of a violent nature. Well, I was right. Police report a husband and wife from Smyrna traveled to the Target parking lot in the Providence Mall. They were there to sell a firearm to someone that they met online. According to Captain Tyler Chandler of the Mount Juliet Police Department, the husband met the individual he was selling the firearm to. He was then ambushed by another person who began shooting at him. Police say the victim ran back to his vehicle, grabbed a firearm, and began shooting at the suspects who were shooting at him. It was a gunfight at the Target Corral, if you will. The victim was not hit by any of the gunfire. No word on whether any of the other suspects were. And I'm not joking. This was serious. One of the bullets, at least one bullet, went through the glass at the Red Robin burger joint, while people were patronizing said say. Captain Chandler says several patrons began ducking for cover behind vehicles in the parking lot. And as I mentioned, the nearby Red Robin, they had to take cover. A bullet came through one of the restaurant windows. The department said they've not found anyone who was injured by the gunfire. Police report the suspects fled in an SUV. License plate readers. Hey, Nashville, license plate readers working here. Might want to look up how effective they were here. license plate readers in Mount Juliet captured the vehicle tags, which are out of Nashville. Hey, if Nashville's license plate readers were still up like they used to be, then maybe they could have flagged this Nashville plate when they came back into town, and we could have these suspects apprehended and behind bars. How about that? For those who don't know, the city of Nashville is about to poop the bed when it comes to license plate readers. Against the better judgment of the Metro Nashville Police Department, the politics are going to dictate that they don't use these readers. Mark my words. They keep saying, oh, yeah, we're going to bring them back. We're going to do this and that and the other thing. We need another test session, another pilot program. It's all garbage. Sadly, the same people that claim that they care about violence in the inner city, and they care about criminal activity in the inner city, they don't really care about criminal activity in the inner city when the chips are down, sadly. Anyway, in Mount Juliet, the department says they believe that there are 3 individuals involved. One, the individual planning to meet the man. Another was driving the SUV. And a third individual who opened fire on the suspect. I said this when I saw this story on the news. I didn't know what had happened when I witnessed it personally. Then I go and I look on the news and I think, why, Bell, if you find someone that you want to transact business with online, whatever you're doing, maybe you're buying a tranny online, I don't know. Where do you go to exchange money for the good?
Venmo or PayPal?
Well, that's a good call, yes. But to actually transact the deal, you meet them online, you hook up, maybe you talk to them on the telephone. You don't want them to come to your house. Maybe you're uncomfortable doing that. Do you meet them in the parking lot of the Target? It's not a good idea. Meet them at the police station. That's what you do. Anyone who wants to transact business with you, if you have to take them cash money or any payment whatsoever, if you're exchanging something for something else, whether it's a gun, I don't know that it's a good idea to meet in the parking lot to exchange a gun, but be that as it may. Just tell them you want to meet them at the local police station. If they don't want to meet you at the police station, there is a reason. If there is any reason whatsoever that they don't want to meet at the parking lot of the police station to make this exchange, that is a flag for you that you should not be transacting business with this person. So I thought this, and I said this, and many police departments have an area of the parking lot that is specifically set aside for these types of exchanges. Captain Chandler said as much over the weekend, urging anyone meeting up for a transaction with someone they met online to meet that person at the police station. Many police departments throughout the mid-state and our community have these parking spots in their police department parking lots under bright lights and also under surveillance. I would encourage anyone, if you're trying to sell something online, meet someone who's a stranger, go to that safe spot at your local police department and do that transaction. If someone's not going to meet you at a police department, it's likely bad news and you want to stay away from it. It's exactly right. Great advice. If you agree to meet someone to buy something that you found online or you're selling something online, you shouldn't be comfortable with that transaction because these types of things happen all the time. But it's pretty simple. Tell them to meet you at the police station. And if they don't want to do that, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. 123 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Stand by. More after this. My friends Holly and David at Savory Spice want you to know that they have everything available for you and ready to go to make the holiday season very, very special, particularly Thanksgiving dinner. You know, we eat certain foods at Thanksgiving, dressing or stuffing, depending on how you prepare it and where you're from. Regardless of what you call it, you know what you need to make it. You need delicious spices. You need for my family, I love to tell the story that my grandfather always wanted more sage in the dressing. That was his big deal. Well, you can get sage at Savory Spice. Holly sent me a picture of it. There's a big canister just waiting on you. Pumpkin spice, that's waiting on you as well. All of the things that make Thanksgiving dinner, so wonderful and delicious. They have at Savory Spice, and they can help you with food preparation as well. Go by and see Holly and David with the 2 locations to serve. One's in L&L Market in Nashville on Charlotte Pike. The other location in Franklin, just off the square next to Gray's Pharmacy. When you walk in, you'll smell it before you see it, and oh, the smells are so delectable and delicious, especially this time of year. Stock up at Savory Spice. You up that Thanksgiving dinner by upping your food game. You up your food game by upping your spice game. You up your spice game at Savory Spice. Savory Spice. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Kathy writes in on the Super Text line, 615-737-9986. By the way, if you'd like to be a part of the show, you can super text us. You can also call the show. We'll get to Dawn's call momentarily. Michael Patrick Leahy's coming up at 1:35 this afternoon. Matt, dressing is what you put on your salad. Signed, Kathy. I'll fight you over this. Mine is simple. Stuffing is something you put inside of the bird. Dressing is something that you cook exterior to the bird.
That's the way my grandmother always explained it to me.
That's it.
Is if you cook it in the bird,
it's stuffing.
You've stuffed it in the bird.
Right.
If you're using it to dress your plate and you cooked it out of the bird, it's dressing.
Giddy up. Love it. What screws all of this up is that stupid stovetop stuffing, which is neither dressing nor really stuffing. It's just, it don't get me wrong, it's carbolicious. But it's neither, and they call it stuffing. I know that this is kind of a northern, southern thing. I think more Yankees call it stuffing more than Southerners. We never did the cavity deal inside the bird. My grandmother always took the giblets and all of that and made some delicious giblet gravy, left the cavity open, did the stuffing on the, or the dressing, I should say, on the side. Ooh, almost screwed up. Dressing on the side. My favorite memory of Thanksgiving, there's a lot of them, is every Thanksgiving the same thing happened. And I kind of alluded to it in the Savory Spice ad. My grandmother would make the dressing early in the morning on Thanksgiving morning. She would mix it up in a big mixing bowl, and she would take a small bowl prior to cooking it. She would take a small bowl out, just a little bowl of the uncooked dressing, and she would set it aside. And that was for my grandfather to taste because she wanted to know what it needed. And she would always say it that way. What does it need? And my grandfather would take a spoon every Thanksgiving, take a spoon of it, look at her and say, needs more sage. And that's it. Every year. The man loved his sage. Apparently, she did not love her sage as much as he loved his sage. And always got more sage, too. I love a nice sagey dressing. Dawn is next in Middle Tennessee. Dawn, thank you for your call. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, Dawn. What's on your mind?
First thing, go Vols. Anyway, second thing, we made a large transaction a couple of years ago, and the man, it was over eBay. The man was coming from southern Texas, outside of San Antonio, and we, instead of having us meet him at our home like you were talking about, we met him at a local store. But luckily we had a friend that worked at the sheriff's department, and he was gracious enough to meet us and stay there during the whole transaction. Because I don't care if it's your neighbor or somebody from across the country, you just can't trust people anymore.
No, you're right. And you just have to be very careful because you could have good interaction after good interaction with people that you don't know. And I've had many good interactions selling things online. Thank you, Dawn, for the call. But there are bad actors out there that want to cause you harm or do damage to you. And we saw that in Mount Juliet Friday. Just go to the police station, in all seriousness. I mean, it should be no skin off their nose to meet you in the parking lot of the police station. You're not interacting with the cops. You're just getting close enough where if they're bad guys, they're not going to want to do that. It's 1:31 on Super Talk 99.7. Coming up in a moment from the Tennessee Star, Michael Patrick Leahy, with a rundown and a fact check of our interview with Cameron Sexton from last Friday. We'll do it next. Super Talk 99.7 WTN 136, almost 137, as we mosey our way to the drive with Brian Wilson. That's coming up at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Happy to have you with us on episode 454. Episode 453 was certainly a doozy. That was last Friday, as we had Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton. All week long, we were discussing, well, really in the aftermath of the events happening on Tuesday, we were discussing first the shooting and then the sad death of Jillian Ludwig, who was a student at Belmont University. She was just a shooting by happenstance. She was walking at a park where she was shot by a stray bullet and killed eventually. We believe the alleged assailant is a man by the name of Shaquille Taylor. We walked through some of the background of Taylor, and I'm not going to do that now because I want to introduce our guest and let him walk through it as he did during his fact check of the conversation that we had with Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton, because I asked the question of Cameron that I've asked of every political official that will come on regarding this case, and that is, who is to blame here? I have a hard time believing that we're just going to throw our hands in the air and say there was nothing we can do when Shaquille Taylor had a long rap sheet. He was known to authorities. He was apprehended for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, subsequently released because he was found to be incompetent to stand trial. However, he was, I guess one would say, too competent in order to involuntarily incarcerate him, which seems to be a gap in the law. I bring this up to Cameron. He says, yes, it was a gap in the law, and we had a solution during the special session, and sadly, we were stymied from getting to that solution because of the state Senate and their insistence that they only handle the bills as set forth by the governor in the special session. So I reiterated to him during the end of the interview, and you can listen to it at 99.7 WTN. So you're saying that had the Senate not been insistent that they would just handle these few matters, if they had taken up some of the legislation emanating from the House, that you believe that Shaquille Taylor very likely would have still been in jail? He said yes. We have good friends with the Tennessee Star. What a great organization they are. Michael Patrick Leahy and his team do great work. And they did good work over the weekend as he has fact-checked our conversation. And to talk about that, he joins us in studio today. Michael Patrick, hello.
Matt, that interview on Friday you had with Speaker Sexton was stunning. And you asked precisely the correct question. And you worded it in this way. You said, if the state Senate had taken up legislation passed by the House, would Shaquille Taylor have been in custody? And Speaker Sexton said yes. Now, we did a fact check on that. It's a big story at the Tennessee Star lead. Fact check of Tennessee House Speaker Sexton claim that alleged killer of Belmont freshman would have been in custody had state Senate acted. False. Now, I did an interview with Dan Mandis this morning at 7:35. At 8:05, Speaker Sexton called me, and we had a cordial conversation. It began cordial. It became a little feisty. And he said, look, you have to take a look at the bill that we were going to pass that would have made that difference. So he sent it to me. It's bill number 7036, and we can go over that. That bill did not pass. It was on the calendar to be addressed in the House on the last day of the special session. So there was one word change in the law that Speaker Sexton argues would have kept Shaquille Taylor in custody after his arrest on September 21st on felony auto theft charges. Let me just read the law. It's Tennessee Code annotated 33-6-403, which currently reads, if and only if, 1, a person has a mental illness or serious mental emotional disturbance, and 2, the person poses an immediate substantial likelihood of serious harm, then the person may be admitted and detained by a hospital or treatment resource for emergency diagnosis.
That's current law.
That's the current law.
Okay.
So I looked at the bill 7036, which was not passed by the House, but which was on the calendar on the day of adjournment that Speaker Sexton's team sent me this morning. There is one word difference. Instead of saying, and the person poses an immediate substantial likelihood of serious harm, they would have changed the law to the person poses an imminent substantial likelihood of serious harm. Now, the difference between imminent and immediate is very, very little.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what difference that change makes.
Well, I looked up in the dictionary. Imminent, likely to occur at any moment. Immediate, accomplished without delay. Okay, so these are maybe a slight difference. But here's the real point.
The layman would call them synonyms.
I think you were correct. But here is the real point on this. And Speaker Sexton's assertion that Shaquille Taylor would have been in jail had the Senate acted on either legislation passed or this bill that didn't pass is false. And the reason is the key issue here was when Nashville Magistrate Stephen Huzzetfeld on September 21st set the bond for Shaquille Taylor on felony auto theft charges at $10,000.
And just so folks that are trying to keep up, right? He was released in the spring based on his inability to, according to the three doctors, to understand the charges against him. This auto theft, unrelated to that aggravated assault with a deadly weapon charge, which was ultimately dismissed by a judge. So
incorrectly, by the way, but go ahead.
Right, and I want to get into that too, because sadly, none of this, in my estimation, based on your research and your fact-checking, matters because they didn't have to do it to begin with. So on the auto theft, it fascinates me, Michael, that he only received a $10,000 bond.
Well, there's the point right there. Number one, that was the point at which the district attorney should have gone before the Nashville magistrate and said, this person has a mental illness and serious emotional disturbance and poses an immediate substantial likelihood of serious harm. That was known back then.
Right.
They did not make that argument. Apparently, they just missed it or didn't think it was important. They are, to be blunt, they are coddlers of criminals. That's the bottom line. And the judge is also a coddler of criminals because he was either too lazy or didn't care about the previous incident of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon.
Well, for me, it's the bottom line of all of this is that you see, I think the figure was 230 or thereabouts individuals believed to have been released under what is being described by the district attorney as a loophole. And you and the Tennessee Star have correctly identified it as not a loophole at all.
It's a poor implementation of the law by criminal coddling Nashville legal system.
Say, I would say that it's a pattern of behavior on the part of the district attorney, Glenn Funk.
And the judges, too.
And the judges, right.
So let's look at this. We've looked at other counties and other judges, similar circumstances. When someone like this comes up, they look at the current law and say that person poses an immediate substantial likelihood, send them off for evaluation. That is somebody who is a good judge who is not leaning left in favor of a criminal. And the problem is everything in Metro Nashville leans in favor of criminals and not victims. And the problem isn't the existing law. The problem is the failure to aggressively pursue existing law.
I find it interesting from a political perspective, and Cameron Sexton will get an opportunity later on in the week to speak to this now. It's interesting that he's picking, instead of identifying that this is a pattern of behavior on the part of the local DA, Glenn Funk, and a pattern of behavior on the part of the judges in Nashville, and something that needs to be identified, highlighted, talked about by us and the community, and ultimately the behavior needs to be changed. Instead of that, he's picking a fight with the Senate.
It doesn't make any sense. I can tell you, if the same circumstance had taken place in Williamson County, Rutherford County, Wilson County, a criminal with this background would have been bound over for treatment.
So, and I just want to reiterate this. It's very important. And please go and read the article. Tennessee Star does a great job laying it out. They take our interview and fact check the interview and the things that Cameron said in real time. that there's no loophole at all. Decisions are being made within the court system in Davidson County that allow these individuals to walk out of jail.
It's exactly right. It's a cultural problem. But Matt, it's not just the district attorney's office. It's the assistant district attorneys. It's the judges. Judge Dalton made a bad decision here, letting the guy out, dismissing the charges back in May on the aggravated assault charges. It's the three-doctor panel who said he's not competent to stand trial, but you can't put him into a facility. That was a bad medical judgment. They're all leaning left and coddling criminals. Every aspect of Metro Nashville, Davidson County legal system.
And you correctly, I mean, obviously, you do such great work at the Tennessee Stars. Tennessee statute, TCA 337-301B, addresses this and says, treatment of defendants found incompetent to stand trial in states, and I'm reading from the Tennessee Star here, if the court determines on the basis of the mental health evaluation and other relevant evidence, A, that the defendant is incompetent to stand trial because of mental illness, either party may demand a jury trial on the issues. In other words, there was an opportunity for Glenn Funk to say, hold on a second, Your Honor. He had a second bite at the apple that he chose not to take.
He actively chose not to take that part of the law, which he could have easily done, to appeal it and have that issue tried on the merits. It's right there in statute.
Now, Glenn Funk can, at this point, make the argument that after you lay all of this out, it occurs to me, he could make the argument, well, we did not believe that this individual would be a danger. He was clearly wrong. A woman is dead.
How could you not believe that? I mean, look at his history.
And I would agree with that, too.
I mean, in August of 2021, he shot at a car that had a woman and apparently 2 children in it. That's aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. He's engaged in auto theft in September. This is clearly an immediate substantial threat to the public safety.
I hate it that these things come up in these circumstances, but I was reading an article involving the woman that was the victim of the original charge against him.
August of 2021.
And this Ms. Workman was her name. And she said, Shayla Workman, and her 2 young children were the victims in that case. And she said, he shot at me and my 2 babies. They let him out because he's too incompetent. But how can you be incompetent if you admit that you're shooting at everybody? I mean, so she, in her layman's way, gets it, that you're admitting that you're doing these things. You're doing them repeatedly, yet for some reason the doctor's panel in this case, they decide, oh, he doesn't understand the charges against him, and the DA decides that he's just going to wash his hands of it and let the man walk. And now someone's dead as a result. And oddly, instead of pointing the finger where I think the blame should be, and that is on the judges and the DA, our Speaker of the House points the finger at the Tennessee Senate. It's just for over a one-word change that is negligible at best.
Immediate versus imminent. It doesn't make any sense.
Put on your speculation hat for a moment, Michael. I mean, and admittedly, we don't know. Cameron can speak for himself, and he deserves to be able to speak to these things as well. It feels like something else is going on here. It feels like that there's maybe some animosity with how the special session shook out, and Cameron is taking an opportunity to publicly air some of that frustration that he has with the Tennessee Senate.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, who's he listening to? He's listening to the Democrat district attorney in one of the 2 blue counties, one of the 2 progressive counties in the entire state. Why is he doing that? Why is he listening to that person and not listening to the 93 other district attorneys in conservative counties?
Right.
That would be the logical thing to do.
Instead, leaning on, as you put, the 2 counties that have been identified consistently since I've been here, and I would expect since you've been in Tennessee, and that's a lot longer than me, as the problem areas with regard to the aggressive nature of prosecution or the lack of an aggressive nature of prosecution in these Democrat enclaves.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's clearly the problem right here.
Well, incredible fact-checking. Thank you for doing that heavy lift that this host was unable to do. I appreciate that, and I hope that everyone goes over to the Tennessee Star and reads
I want to thank you for that insightful interview with Speaker Sexton. And I think you were probably as surprised as I was in the direction the speaker went.
Couldn't believe it.
I mean, I could.
Toward the end, when I asked him to reiterate, I was like, I was trying to make sure that I understood what he was saying correctly, because it was hard for me to believe that when I asked a question about where should blame lie with a woman dead in Nashville, Tennessee, Cameron chose to, at least what I was hearing, he was blaming his colleagues in the Tennessee Senate.
Well, I can tell you from my conversation with him this morning, he's doubling down on, I think, his false argument. He's doubling down on his error, and I think it does make a lot of sense.
Well, Jack Johnson, Senate Majority Leader, will be here tomorrow at 2 o'clock to speak to the matter, and I know that the Speaker of the House has requested of me an opportunity to kind of clarify and reiterate some of the remarks that he made last week. So we look forward to that and look forward to future reporting from the Tennessee Star. Thank you, Michael.
Matt, thank you for having me on. It's always fun to be on your program.
It's always good to listen to you with Nashville's Morning News and Dan Mandis. We don't like for Dan Mandis to have all the fun. That's why we steal of Michael Patrick Leahy on occasion in these afternoon hours. 1:53, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Stand by. Leftist media is all in a Twitter because Donald Trump used the term vermin to describe some of his political opponents. Dana Bash, particularly. I love how they refer to anyone who disagrees with them in any way they desire, and everything's fair game. And when someone claps back at them, suddenly they're clutching pearls. Vomit. Absolute vomit. All right, the Biden family grift hour coming up in just a moment. Tim Scott's out as a presidential candidate. Will he be a VP pick? Certainly, one would think he was on a short list. Mac Morey's got the news right now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's 2 o'clock.
Two o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 71 degrees, mostly sunny day on Music Row. Complete weather forecast just a few minutes away. The Supreme Court has released a code of conduct for justices. Stephen Portnoy with more from Washington.
The 8-page code constitutes the first formal set of ethical guidelines established by the High Court. Its preamble stresses there's not much new in the code, that it merely codifies the long-standing principles that justices have always been expected to uphold. When it comes to gifts, the code says a justice should comply with the same restrictions that apply to lower court judges. Justice Clarence Thomas has come under intense scrutiny for not disclosing all the gifts he's received from wealthy friends and benefactors.
As members of the United Auto Workers Union vote on whether to ratify their company's new proposed contracts, some non-union factory workers are now getting pay bumps. Mike Dubusky.
Hyundai has announced that the non-union staff at its Alabama factory is getting a wage hike. The Korean automaker says after a pay bump in January, workers will have seen a 14% increase in pay over the last year. It says by 2028, wages will increase by 25%, matching the pay raises proposed under the new contracts from the UAW and the big three American automakers. Hyundai follows Honda and Toyota, both of which said U.S. production workers will get pay raises starting in January.
And turn into sports. Listen to who's going to be in Knoxville on Saturday when the Vols host the two-time defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs.
Well, hello, it's Dolly, and I am so excited to join 101,000 of my friends in the best place for college football, Neyland Stadium. I'll see you there.
She then posted, I can't wait to cheer on Vol football this Saturday. See you on Rocky Top, #GBO. And the Vols will most certainly need Dolly Parton's magic on Saturday. That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Efficient Heating and Cooling is ready for you when you're ready for them. And if your heater's not ready, call Jeff Eddy in Efficient Heating and Cooling. So Jeff Eddy will send one of his team members out, certified technicians out. They'll check that unit. If it's a maintenance call, you never pay over $125. That's pretty nice, right? So you oftentimes will pay less than that. But Jeff Eddy guarantees that no matter how many units you have at your residence, whether you have 2 or 3 or 4, maybe you have a guest home or whatever, they'll maintenance every single one of them for $125 or less. That's the Efficient guarantee because he wants you to get that maintenance done. It's going to extend the life of your unit. It's going to make sure that you get maximum lifespan out of that heating unit. And when it's time, and it will be time before you know it, you'll get a brand new unit. Thank you to Efficient Heating and Cooling. They're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric. You can select that or an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. Ask him about your options. Ask him about financing options as well when you call Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. They will tell you the truth, and I trust them in my home, and I know you can trust them in yours. EfficientHVAC.net. That's EfficientHVAC.net or 615-784-4424, 784-4424 for Efficient. At 2 p.m. at this time every Saturday, you listen to, I hope, Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and you listen to the next voice we're going to hear as a guest on the Matt Murphy Show. I've listened to her often, and it's good to have her on to help us understand what the heck's going on in my world and maybe in your world as well. So let me give you a little bit of the backstory. 1, thank you for joining us in hour number 3. We appreciate you on this Monday edition of the show. Happy to have you along. Beautiful day, nice, little cool, should be, middle of November. So I received a tax notice in the mail from the Department of the Treasury, and it confused me. Let me give you a bit of the backstory because several of you have indicated that you received similar types of notices. I'm just going to tell you, well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to introduce our guest, and then I'm going to retell the story that I told in the 12 o'clock lunchtime hour and see if Dr. Friday's heard this before. You hear Dr. Friday at 2 o'clock on Saturday on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and now you hear her on the Matt Murphy Show. Dr. Friday, thank you for coming on with us. How are you?
Hey, Matt, I am doing awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate your expertise in this matter because I'm a little confused. It's a head scratcher. Maybe there's nothing going on here. Maybe this is just the IRS wanting to get a little extra cash. So here's what happened. The wife and I mean, we file our taxes and pay our tax debt as it is owed annually. I set mine up so I know that I'm going to owe a little more. I'm going to owe something. I'm going to have to cut a check when it comes to tax time because I don't like the idea of the government keeping my money tax-free. You know how it goes.
Right.
Yep. So we owed this year. We cut a check, sent it off, and then we received this back from the Department of the Treasury. We filed a 6-month extension from April to October, so this all happened last month. The letter that we received, which is dated November 6th, says we applied your 2022 Form 1040 overpayment to an unpaid balance. And then it goes on to say, we applied $2.11. Apparently we overpaid this year. $2.11 of your 2022 Form overpayment to the amount owed for 2020. As a result, the amount you owe for December 31st, 2020 is $40.36. So my wife worked for a CPA firm in Birmingham, Alabama, and they still do our taxes for us. And so we contacted our tax preparer, our CPA, David, and he said, well, first off, he said he had gotten a similar letter for himself. And Erica said, well, what's going on? And he said, I'm not really sure. And she said, what do you think we should do? And he said, pay it. Now, that seemed a little to me, and I'm not faulting him, Dr. Friday, but it seemed a little too easy for the IRS to just send these $40 letters out. And I'm thinking, I think that's what they want. I think if we had not paid our full 2020 tax bill, they would have sent us a notice by now that we owe them money, yet this is the first we're hearing about this 2020 debt. I just will stop talking and say, Dr. Friday, what's up with this?
All right. So first, the love letter is probably truthful because you are a lot like a lot of my clients, which means at the end of every year, you know you're going to write a check. In 2020, as you know, we had an extension period. And then obviously if you filed an extension, you know, there was a little extra time there, but that did not extend when you owed the money. So a lot of people have gotten, and it's taken them a while to get caught up on the 2020 filings. 2019 and 2020 were bad years. The IRS was closed for a period of time in the year 2020, so 2019 got behind. And then once they got behind, it took them a good 2 years to really catch up. Have you at any chance relocated since filing your 2020 taxes?
Oh, wait, say that again, Dr. Friday?
Did you relocate at all since 2020? When you filed your 2020, was the address the same, or did you?
No. We subsequently moved to Tennessee. We lived in Alabama. We moved to Tennessee.
I had a feeling that might be the case. So it is possible the IRS will not forward letters. So if you did not change your address on that return, they may not have updated your information until now. So even though they may have sent a letter and it bounced back to them because it will not forward when you do a mail forwarding, then that's their excuse, let me tell you, but one of my pet peeves. But anyways, there is a very good chance that they will say they did mail you a letter. But due to the fact that you relocated and the address was not the same that was on the tax return, they're not forwarding it until the new address change has been effected on the IRS website. So that's why I tell people you need to update the IRS to keep those love letters flowing. And I would be like your CPA, to be honest, it's going to cost you, $150 to pay me to track it down, pay $40 to the IRS. It's not worth I'll have some people who say the principle of it, but most people just want to pay because they're not going to pay more for the principal and still possibly find out that you owed the $40 in the first place.
So this just goes back to what we've all long known to be true, and that is the Department of the Treasury is an agent of the government, and as inefficient as they may be, they will always eventually get their money.
Oh, yes, they will, and they're going to get with penalties and interest. So, you may have only owed $20 when it happened, and now it's $40. It's your penalty is $25, failure to pay on time, failure to file, they're going to hit you up pretty high. So, it is never a pretty sight. You got 50% penalty within the first 5 months of filing something?
So cut the check for $40.36.
Stop whining, Matt. Just pay the government, okay?
It is the principle of the thing. I pay the government a lot of money, and they're dunning me for 2 years ago here, Dr. Friday.
I hear you. But I'm going to tell you, they're going to blame you for everything. And if it was $400, we'd have a whole different conversation. But for $40, and I won't disagree. We've had a large number of people, because of a lot of people relocating because of COVID and moving to selling their primary homes, relocating, having this exact same issue where the love letters got lost. And then we get power of attorney. We find out that we have a different situation, and then we have to go back and try to figure out why. Where's the money? They swore they paid it in full, and find out it's applied to another year, et cetera, et cetera.
While I have you, I want to ask you a broader question about the IRS, generally the Department of the Treasury. I mean, is it just the nature of it being the government, right? I don't expect good customer service when I go to get my tags at the DMV because, well, it's the only place that I can go get my tags. So the nature of the lack of competition indicates that they're going to take their sweet time about things. It feels like any level of communication that I try to have with the Department of the Treasury or with the IRS, it's impossible. It's just impossible. And is that just the nature of dealing with the government?
Well, I think you have to think of the IRS as a huge collection company. And have you ever talked to a collection agent? They have one thing in mind. How can they make money off, or how can they get money from you to pay whatever they feel you owe? Even if you don't owe it, whatever. But that's their major purpose is for collections. Now, the tax advocate office, if you ever want to talk to some good people at the IRS, I would go to the IRS. Nashville has a tax advocate office. They're the nice people within the IRS, I guess I would say. Otherwise, you're really dealing with people that are auditors or collection agents.
Dr. Friday, while I have you, people are already peppering me with questions to ask you. So I think I should default to the super text line and ask you, like Sally wants to know, Is there a statute of limitation for filing taxes?
So, no, there isn't, but the IRS has put out a ruling. So if you haven't filed taxes and they have not assessed you taxes, you have to go back 6 years to get back into compliance. If they've assessed you taxes from the date of assessment until 10 years after that, they can do collections. Hopefully that answers it.
I think it does. And it's this one, Matt, will you please ask Dr. Friday, what would it cost for me to come out of the cold after 1 year of tax default? That doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, you
That's
tell me, Dr. Friday.
Because no worries. That was a tough one only because, the cost the cost to get him out was they owes the IRS, and does he need to do an offer and compromise or payment plan, or does he mean cost of preparation? So you can always put my number out or just tell him to listen on Saturday, and I'll be more than glad to take that call direct.
Dr. Friday, the tax and financial firm, 615-367-0819. Did I get that right, Dr. Friday?
Perfect, Matt. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, look, if you have any further questions for Dr. Friday, give her a call. Listen on Saturdays at 2 o'clock. She's a great wealth of resource information regarding the IRS and all your tax information. And you were a great resource for me. So just shut it down, Murphy. Pay your $40 and be happy they don't want more out of me, right?
Exactly. They're not putting a lien or levy against your paychecks or anything, okay? Be happy.
Thank you, Dr. Friday, for coming on with us today.
Thanks.
All right, take care. There's Dr. Friday. And Friday is Dr. Friday's first name. It's Dr. Friday Burke, right?
Yes.
A better host would have asked.
And she is actually a doctor. She has a PhD in economics.
Well, she's pretty good at what she does when it comes to the IRS. I know that. A lot of people lean on her as a resource. So,
she's a very smart lady.
You know what? The only thing that I would say is I'm going to write back. I'm going to send this back to the IRS. I'm not taking Dr. Friday's advice. I'm not paying it. I'm going to send this letter back to the IRS, and I'm going to find a nice photo of Hunter Biden. And I'm going to attach a letter saying that I identify as Hunter Biden. Therefore, I will not be paying my tax burden. See if that works. What do you think?
P.S. You want your money? Come get it.
Out of my cold, dead hands. You know what? Sadly, she's right. I'm not going to. If it were $400, it would be different. But it's not. And I don't know that this is the IRS just deciding to try to take another bite at the apple. It's probably what she said made sense. They gave you grace in 2020, but that doesn't mean that they didn't expect for you to pay penalties and interest. And what probably happened is they gave us grace. They say, hey, yeah, pay your taxes late. That's all good. We understand, it's been a crazy year. Go ahead and pay them late. What they don't say is, oh, by the way, we're going to charge you penalties and interest for paying them late. They act like they're doing you this big solid on the front end, and they hose you on the back end because, they're the IRS, the world's largest collection agency with eminent power to destroy your life.
It's like the mafia.
Yeah, just like the mafia. They, except they work for a worse boss, the government. Joe Biden.
The truth.
That is the truth. Speaking of Joe Biden, the Biden crime syndicate family continues to operate. And we're going to run down the timeline for you so you can easily understand. We've not revisited this in some time. We'll take your telephone calls as well. 218 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. USS stands for United Structural Systems. Let's talk about what they do. If you have basement or crawl space, mold or mildew, if you smell that smell in your basement or crawl space, the possibility exists that you need waterproofing. It's a process that protects your basement and crawl space from water damage. Their system will get rid of basement or crawl space water. It will get rid of that mold and mildew. Water, the encapsulation process is pretty incredible. Ask them about that. The USS has waterproofing services that also deals with interior and exterior drains, Crawl space waterproofing, crawl space encapsulation, and dehumidification. It's all available at USS. So if waterproofing is your problem, they have a solution for you at USS. If it's foundation repair, they can help there too. And, of course, they have the concrete polylift system that is just a time saver and a money saver when it comes to your home. Your home repairs need to get done. I know you don't want to do it. You want to whistle past that graveyard, like I like to say. But it's time to make the call that you know you need to make. To USS, United Structural Systems, since 1994, they've been guaranteeing their best and delivering with over 25,000 satisfied customers. Be the next one by calling. They serve Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, and Northern Alabama. 615-488-7855, 488-7855, 488-7855, or USSTN.com.
A public emergency declared in our nation's capital. Will tell you what for, plus some crime in Tennessee. That and more 30 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Hey, Mac Morey.
Hey, Matt Murphy.
I haven't had a chance to check in with you. See how you doing. I mean, I know we've spoken in the hallways and whatnot.
Yeah, of course, of course.
We'll miss you tomorrow night. I know you have duties. You have sports podcasting duties.
Yes.
We wanted. We're getting the gang together.
I know.
And Hannah's still invited. Frankly,
yeah, we don't need you there for her.
We don't really need you.
Don't know if I trust Belle.
Hannah and Copper, maybe. And
Copper would love it.
I don't know that dogs are allowed, but we're going out to. We're going to stop by Zany's, see a little Dusty
awesome.
Slay, old. What is it called? The Grand Old Comedy Show. That's right. At Zany's. So that means that Belle and I will bear. See, we had 5 tickets, and now we have to. We have to bear the brunt of your drink allotment. So thanks a lot, Maury.
Oh, I'm so sorry. How will you survive?
We have to drink extra drinks because there's minimums going on. But we will. We'll miss you. Then, are you going to? You're not planning on a trip to Knoxville over the weekend, right?
You are though, right?
I am.
That's gonna be fun.
It will be fun.
Hey, you know who else is planning a trip?
Dolly.
I
think, yeah, I know. Dolly's.
She won't like you in that red and black, though.
She will love me in anything that I wear. Dolly Parton is a princess. Glory, glory to old Dolly. Glory, glory to Dolly. She's our nation's princess. Thank you. Dolly Parton is proof that there's goodness and kindness and love and generosity in the world. She is also proof that the last perfect person that walked the earth, they nailed him to a cross. She is not perfect. And if you don't believe me, look at the colors she will be wearing Saturday.
When you're talking about her generosity and courage, I thought you were talking about too, because she's generous enough to root for the Tennessee team that's going to get throttled on Saturday.
No, you guys are good at home. Stop it with the rat poison. Y'all are something different in that home environment in Neyland Stadium. I've never been there, but I'm told.
I'm excited that you'll get to go there.
It should be a lot of fun.
Great environment, great atmosphere.
Should be a lot of fun. And folks, it's funny because my presentation on the radio, I think people think that I translate that into a presentation in a hostile environment, and they are already reaching out fearing for me. And I promise you, I am the most gracious guest in an environment like that you'll ever find. Of course, I'm going to wear red and black. Of course, I'm going to root for the Bulldogs. But I am a guest. You
won't be the only one there doing that.
That's right. But, I mean, I'm certain that most will be wearing the old the pumpkin innard orange.
Checkerboard.
Isn't that what that's the official name of that color that you guys have? Pumpkin innard orange. Is there a checkerboard going on? They only do that like once a year, right?
Yeah, I don't think that'll be. I mean,
I see you
we don't
being
deserve it.
Much more subdued than you were at the Valentine.
Oh yeah,
you were in a friendly crowd at that point.
Oh yeah, we were in a friendly crowd. We're gonna be raucous. We're gonna enjoy ourselves. There's a bunch of Georgia fans, very very few Florida fans.
Florida,
Yeah,
not Tennessee too.
Yeah, and
Plus,
it was Florida, which Gators wear jean shorts. I mean,
at one point you had to be the big screen. So
that's true. I did. But no, when you're in a hostile environment, you mind your manners. The keys, the rules of the road are simple. You root and cheer for your team. You do not cheer when bad things happen to the other team. You don't cheer for bad things to happen to the other team. That keeps you out of hostile engagement. But other than that, you cheer for your team when good things happen, and hopefully good things will happen on Saturday afternoon. Should be a nice environment at Neyland Stadium. Am I saying that right? Neyland?
Yeah, Neyland Stadium. Yeah, Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, very good. Oh, I wonder if I could figure out a way to meet Dolly.
Oh, dude, you got to.
I've been working on that.
If you get to do that.
I've been working on that for 20 years. 20 years. Just, just the one human being that I want to meet above all others on planet Earth. That's all. That's all. That's all. That's it. No big deal. Does it make anyone else uncomfortable, this story from News Channel 5 about, I don't know what it is about this. I feel like we should be beyond it. And I'm going to give fair warning when I bring this story up, because I'm going to talk about Santa Claus, okay? I'm going to talk about Santa Claus. In the midst of festive cheer, I'm just reading the story as written by News Channel 5. In the midst of festive cheer, Cool Springs Galleria is ushering in the holiday season with a special touch this year, a Santa Claus who reflects the diversity of the community. From November 9th to the 13th, I guess today, families have an opportunity to meet a Kris Kringle who breaks away from tradition, offering a unique and heartwarming experience for visitors. That's right. For many families, the annual visit to the mall for photos with Santa is a cherished tradition. This year, however, Cool Springs Galleria is aiming to ensure that every member of the community, particularly those in the Black community, feel represented and included in the festivities. That's right. It's a Black Mall Santa.
There is nothing original about a Black Mall Santa. I've seen those my entire life.
Correct. That's first and foremost. Secondly, and once again, I warned you on the front end that we would be talking about Santa Claus in an adult way. So I'm going to give you one more opportunity. If you have little pictures in the car, we'll be done with this right after the bottom of the hour news. So right after after when Mac Morris starts doing the news, you don't have to worry about this anymore. But All right, are we ready? We've all done what we need to do there? Y'all have taken care of your business? If you got kids in the car, it's a fair warning. In 3, 2, 1. Santa's not real! Santa is a fictional character.
What?
He is a Nordic character. So first off, the thing is, I can't help it that his genesis comes from like the great wilderness of the north. But whatever color you want to make him that color. I don't care.
Now you're just lying.
About Santa not being real?
Yes.
Oh.
He's as real as the Easter Bunny.
Yes. I thought you were gonna quote from the New York, the Sun. Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa. Have you ever read that? When I was probably 12 years old, I promise I'm going to finish this up in about 30 seconds, so y'all don't fear. And I gave you fair warning. There is an editorial that was printed, I think, in the New York Sun called "Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus." And it's a little 9-year-old girl writes and says, hey, my friends say Santa's not real. Is Santa real? And they lie to that little girl, and they tell her it's so. And even when I read it when I was 12 years old, I thought, this sounds like a lie.
I wonder why.
They justify it by saying, well, fairies are real, so Santa's real.
Okay.
I don't know. It just seems odd that in 2023 we're making a big deal. Yeah, hire a black Santa, hire a white Santa, hire a brown Santa, hire any Santa. I don't understand why we would gravitate necessarily. I don't understand why any white child would have any problem sitting on the lap of a black Santa and vice versa. I don't understand why a black child would have a problem sitting on the lap of a white Santa, and I don't know why we're talking about this in the first place. And now I'm done talking about it in the first place. It's 2:31 on Super Talk.
.231, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 71 degrees, mostly sunny in Middle Tennessee. Full weather forecast 2 minutes away. Washington, D.C. has declared a public emergency for what it calls a growing crisis with youth violence and opioid overdoses. Andy Field has the latest from Washington.
Since before the pandemic, Washington, D.C.'s opioid overdose deaths more than doubled, and there were nearly 460 juvenile arrests just this year.
And while we understand that we're not going to arrest our way out of this violence, we also know that young people need to have consequences.
Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser working on placing more at-risk teens in group homes and treatment centers, adding counseling to schools, and more police enforcement.
And Mayor Bowser continued saying the emergency will also require enhanced data sharing regarding fatal and non-fatal overdoses. Here in Tennessee, Fox 17 says that 5 crew members from the U.S. Army Special Operations based out of Fort Campbell died in a military helicopter crash over the eastern Mediterranean Sea. Officials say it happened during a, quote, routine air refueling mission as part of military training. One of those 5 soldiers was 38-year-old Stephen R. Dwyer of Clarksville, Tennessee. And allegations of a cover-up in the case of a man in Mississippi struck and killed by a police cruiser. Derek Dennis.
37-year-old Dexter Wade was reported missing in Jackson, Mississippi by his mother last March, but it turns out he wasn't missing at all. He was struck and killed by an off-duty Jackson police officer's patrol vehicle, then his body buried in a field. As his worried mother, Betterston Wade Robinson, tried to get police help to find her son in vain.
Kept telling me, no. We don't know where he is.
The city's mayor calling it an accident and admitting a lack of communication. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump getting Wade's body exhumed and demanding a federal civil rights investigation.
Justice for Dexter Wade.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
So I've told you that starting November 1st, the sales tax-free nature of gun-safe sales has been reinstated in the state of Tennessee, and thank you to our friends at the General Assembly for making that happen. Mark and the Safe House want you to know that not only can you save in that regard, and that can be, depending on the price of your safe, hundreds of dollars at Nashville Safe House. And in some cases, perhaps even more if you're talking vault doors and whatnot. But you can also save with incredible rebates that are available to you right now in advance of the holiday season. Mark and his team has more safes than you can possibly, almost more than you can imagine. Well in excess of 500 safes on the showroom floor and in the warehouse. They have something for you, I promise you that. They got a price point for every budget. They've got different brands and varieties. It really, it's almost overwhelming, but Mark and his team are so good. Because they've been doing this for a minute now, over 30 years, as a matter of fact. So they'll ask you a few questions about what you're looking for. If you're looking for a combo deal, if you're looking for a variety of different uses to include, safe storage of business materials and important documents, safe storage of jewelry or guns, and they'll find the right safe for you. That's what they do. It's all they do at Nashville Safe House, safes and vault doors. That's all they do. Now, some of these other guys, they got a couple of safes in the corner. They don't know anything about safes. Mark and his team, they certainly do. Go see the Nashville Safe House difference. Go to NashvilleSafeHouse.com. That's NashvilleSafeHouse.com. Or stop by the Safe House. They're on 4th Avenue South in Nashville, across from City Cemetery. Tell them I sent you to Nashville Safe House. The Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief, available to relieve the pain that ails you without having to resort to pills, without having to consider needles, and without having to consider surgery. Let's discuss. Dr. Wendy, Dr. V, Dr. Dominic, all students of Dr. Gill from the beginning, and they now have a collective over 100 years in the office experience helping people with chiropractic care in a modern way. That means that it's more than just spinal care nowadays. It also involves soft tissue care. It involves ways that they can help alleviate some of the pain in that soft tissue, such as the Class 5 laser system that they have at the Dr. Gill Center, the red light therapy. Of course, the spinal decompression, which worked so well with me for my upper neck issues and my lower back problems. It's all designed to reduce inflammation in the body, reduce pain in the body, swelling, and accelerate healing, and it works. If you're in pain right now, say pain relief when you make the call that so many others have made. Mention my name as well if you don't mind, and they will give you a special discount on your initial consultation at the Dr. Gill Center. 615-882-4838, 882-4838. It's the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. I've done a thing for years. By the way, the reaction to our conversation regarding Santa Claus is pretty epic on the super text line, 615-737-9986. Have I done the scientific Santa with you yet here?
I don't recall if you have.
Okay. It breaks down the science of Santa Claus and what Santa accomplishes and what all that entails. I think it's a little too early to pull that out this year, but we will do it before the end of the year. Called the Scientific Santa Clauses, or the Scientific Santa Claus. It's a pretty good treatment of what it would take. Obviously, Santa Claus is magic, and so Santa Claus overcomes a lot of the scientific realities of what he has to do on a nightly basis every year with magic. So,
like the required speed of travel.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I'll give you if you want me to give you a taste of it. That I'll get real quick warning, fair warning, adults. Give me 30 seconds. So here's a taste of it. The amount of presents he has to take to the good little boys and girls. If you count up all the good little boys and girls, and we kind of have an analysis as to how many girls and boys are good versus not. His sleigh weighs about 353,000 tons. And that's with the toys only weighing 2 pounds apiece per child. And
land that on your roof.
Well, in order for him to accomplish getting to every house, he has to travel at 650 miles a second. So that creates air resistance. And this air resistance at 650 miles per second heats up the reindeer similar to the way the space shuttle would heat up re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. So the lead pair of reindeer, doing the math on this, they absorb 14.3 quintillion joules of energy per second each. Meaning that if they do take off at this speed that they would need to go at to accomplish their task, they immediately burst into flames. I don't know why that makes me so.
I really hope the parents paid attention to your warning.
I really don't know why that makes me so happy. So the entire reindeer team will be vaporized in 4.26 thousandths of a second.
Well, that's clearly not true. Otherwise, we wouldn't see that TV special with Rudolph every year.
Well, and then Santa Claus is subjected to centrifugal force that is 17,000 times greater than gravity.
17,000 Gs?
Yeah, 17,500.06 Gs to be precise.
So more than likely, Santa was in the Air Force.
Well, according to this math, a 250-pound Santa, which seems pretty slim for Santa, would be pinned to the back of the sleigh by 4,315,015 pounds of force. So I hope he's buckled in. Anyway, Alice wanted to talk about the IRS before we got off on talking about Santa Claus. My apologies, Alice. How are you?
I'm fine. It's all right. I was just have two things. you got a letter from the IRS. I worked for the IRS for 12 years. I was customer service, but I wasn't in collections. There is a difference between collections and balance due and refunds. That means that I'm still the nice person that's going to work with you, okay? And, set up agreements and check your refund and all that type of stuff. But you could always ask, I don't know what your bill says, but you can always ask for a first-time abatement of penalty. The government won't waive interest. They just don't. But you can always ask for a penalty abatement if you've never asked for one before.
Well, what the frustrating aspect of this is that the first notice that we've had that we owe $40 on our 2022 payment, which, by the way, the 2022 payment was somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,000, right? So you're telling me I owe you $40 extra, but you're only telling me 3 years later.
Oh, no, I understand because, like I said, I work just the balance due and refunds.
Right.
Where, and people would call and go, well, I said, I don't, I file an extension. Yeah, but how come I have this penalty and interest? Because the extension doesn't extend to penalty and interest because that's how the government gets their money. Right. Okay? And I always have to go, look, I just follow the rules. I don't make them. I would like to have Congress work customer service and answer to the customers, the taxpayers.
I would be I would be willing to bet, Alice, that you've had more people yelling at you than you would care to remember.
Yeah, I mean, it's a stressful job. I mean, because you have identity theft and you have all that stuff. Collections is the one that's going to go, okay, we're going to seize your assets. I didn't work that area. It's like, no, I said, no, I'm not going there. It's hard enough working that the area that I did. But, it's just hard when it comes to customer service. A lot of people just think, I don't make the rules. I'm just telling you what's on your account.
Wow.
But, after 12 years, I took early retirement. I said, I can't handle this no more. I said, that's
good
enough.
for you. Well, I get it. I'm sure there's a lot of stress involved because people want to take it personal and they treat you like you are personally, and thank you, Alice, for the call, like you're somehow personally responsible for the rules of the road, and you're the messenger, literally the messenger. Before we go, Jonathan Lewis, I promised that we would get to this story. A 17-year-old Rancho High School student died last Tuesday, less than 2 weeks after he was savagely beaten by a mob of 15 children. The Las Vegas teenager, whose name we should all know, Jonathan Lewis, died after coming to the defense of a smaller friend who was thrown into a trash can after that smaller friend confronted one of the individuals for stealing something from him. Jonathan Lewis, according to his father, one of the smaller friends had something stolen by a group of 15 individuals. They threw the small boy in a trash can. Our son confronted him. By the way, there's an online video that you can see of the god-awful beating. I would not advise you to do it, mainly because, not necessarily because of the violent nature of the video, although it's violent, obviously, because we know that it leads to this young man's death. He was beaten to death. Footage of the November 1st attack, blocks from the high school where Lewis attended, Rancho High School in Las Vegas, Nevada, shows the teen confronting one of the alleged bullies before throwing a punch. Seconds later, a mob of 15 violent kids swarmed Lewis, began hitting and kicking the teenager repeatedly in the head. He eventually was laying prone and defenseless on the ground, but the vicious assault did not stop. A second extended video of the beatdown shows one of Lewis's friends rushing in to try to help as the bullies swarm him. The unidentified friend is seen frantically trying to rip away the 15 attackers, according to the New York Post article on the story, before receiving a blow to the back of the skull, forcing him to retreat from the madness for his own safety. Some of the bullies attacked Lewis and are seen chasing the friend and punching him in the head until he falls to the ground. 5 of the bullies are seen surrounding Lewis's friend as he tries to get back up, delivering a series of severe kicks and punches. Lewis's girlfriend reportedly gave a statement confirming that her boyfriend was trying to stand up for a smaller friend. He was a courageous young man, his family wrote. Following the attack, police officers found none of the suspects but found Lewis bleeding from the head. Jonathan was rushed to a hospital. Paramedics performed chest compressions before transporting him to the hospital. The teenager was put on life support at the University Medical Center, and he died Tuesday. I believe in the goodness and the kindness of the average person. But I also believe that some, particularly some with a mob mentality, can be horribly cruel, especially of a certain age. But that cruelty has reached new heights, especially when there are racial components involved. Everyone should know Jonathan Lewis's name. He deserved better. But you will not know his name because he's a white boy and he was viciously assaulted by black boys. While the color of the individuals involved should be of no consequence to anyone, it should not matter one way or the other. It does matter with regard to how the mainstream media highlights these stories, which is why I pointed out to you today. You will not hear about this story in the mainstream media on ABC, CBS, NBC, on #NeverCNN, because this young man was white and the group of savage bullies who beat him to death were black. Were the circumstances reversed, and you would obviously hear this story from every media outlet in the country. It is just as wrong in both circumstances. Just as we are learning, and I bring this up for two reasons. One, to say his name, Jonathan Lewis, 17. He and his family deserved better. Number two, to remind you that this mindless, mind-numbing academic process by which some in the academic world suggest that whiteness in and of itself is a privilege and that white people in and of themselves are racist by their nature is just as disgusting as what used to be said about black people 50 and 60 and 70 years ago in those same types of academic settings. And it matters because people listen. When you have a young white person of privilege who decides to go on a murderous rampage at the Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee, writing down about white privilege and these white privileged you-know-whats, she got that from somewhere. And a lack of attention. The silence when it comes to situations like involving Jonathan Lewis is deafening because it doesn't fit the narrative. And that narrative has been ingrained in the minds of some of our young people that white people are by their very nature bad. And that by its very nature is racist to suggest it. I'll call it out. I'll call the baby ugly. It's 2:52. Out of time now. We'll check in briefly with Brian Wilson and find out what's going on the drive next.